Chosen one, stop everything right now. God just broke through 3 walls of fire to get this message to you tonight, not tomorrow, not next week, right now. And if you click away in the next 60 seconds, you will miss the message that has been trying to reach you for months. This is not another video. This is an emergency signal from the highest place, and your spirit already knows it. That is why your heart beat faster when you saw the title. That is why something inside you felt tight the moment you saw this page. You are not here because a computer suggested it. You are here because at exactly 11:47 in the world of spirit, 13 minutes before a holy midnight, a seal with your name on it broke open, and what is inside that seal cannot wait until morning. The Holy Spirit stopped your scrolling, turned your attention, and placed you in front of these words at this exact second, because tonight is not random. Tonight is your anniversary. The anniversary of a question you asked when you were 7 years old, or when you were half asleep, crying in your car last month. You do not remember asking, but heaven marked the date, and tonight the answer comes. You are ready for what comes next, but I need to warn you. What I am about to show you will turn upside down everything you thought you knew about why you have been hurting, why God has been quiet, and what you are really being made ready for. And once you know it, you cannot forget it. So if you are going to leave, leave now, still here. Then you are cleared to receive. There are 3 parts to this message, but if you miss the first one in the next 90 seconds, the other 2 will not make sense. And the third one, I am not allowed to give it until you understand why tonight is the night the seal broke. So listen closely. There is a file in heaven with your name on it. Not your nickname, but the name on your birth certificate, the one your mother said over you before you could talk. That file has been sealed shut since the day you were born. And tonight, for the very first time in your whole life, that seal just cracked. But here is what they do not tell you in church. That file was not sealed by God. It was sealed by you before you came into this body. Before you took your first breath on earth, you stood in the courts of heaven and you made a request. You said, do not let me remember too soon. Do not let me see this information until I am strong enough to carry. Because if I know who I am before I have been tested, I will try to push the mission forward before I have found my team. The silence you have been feeling as abandonment, that was your own plan from before you were born. And tonight, the timer you set for yourself before your birth just hit 0. In the Bible it says, look, I stand at the door and knock, but the Greek word for knock is krao. And krao is not a gentle tap. It is a military-style, urgent pounding, the kind of knock that says, I do not have time to be polite. Open now or the moment is gone. That is the knock you have been hearing in your spirit for the past week, maybe the past month. That restlessness, that feeling like something is about to break open. That is not anxiety. That is heaven pounding on the door of your mind saying, the seal is breaking. Are you ready? But before we go further, I need to name something because most of you seeing this right now are not just tired. You are not just confused. You are suffering from something specific that the church does not have a name for, but I do. It is called spiritual gaslighting. And if you have been feeling it, your whole body just reacted to those words. Maybe your throat closed up. Maybe your chest felt heavy. Maybe your eyes started to sting because finally someone is saying the thing that has been quietly eating you alive. Spiritual gaslighting is what happens when you get real signs, real meaningful moments, real messages from heaven, but no one around you can see them. So you start to doubt what you see. You start to think, maybe I am making this up. Maybe I am losing my mind. Maybe I am not chosen. Maybe I am just wishing too hard. Let me tell you what spiritual gaslighting looks like. You are in your bedroom at 2:00 in the morning. Your phone is glowing blue in the dark. You are scrolling, searching, trying to find one more sign that you are not crazy. Because earlier today you saw 3:33 on the clock for the 5th time this week. And 2 days ago a stranger said the exact sentence you heard in a dream 3 months ago. And last week you felt God speak so clearly you could have written it down word for word. But when you tried to tell someone, they looked at you like you were losing your grip. So now you are alone in the dark asking yourself, am I chosen or am I crazy? And here is the thought you do not say out loud because it feels too ugly, too ungrateful. You think, if I am so special, why does my life look like this? Why am I still struggling? Why am I still alone? Why am I still waiting? That thought, that is not doubt. That is not a lack of faith. That is what is left over from spiritual gaslighting. Because somewhere along the way, someone made you believe that being chosen means you do not feel pain. And when the pain did not stop, you started to think the choosing was not real. But let me tell you what the pain actually was. It was not punishment. It was not God ignoring you. It was preparation. Every betrayal taught you how to see people clearly. Every loss taught you how to let go. Every moment of silence taught you how to trust yourself. You were not being left behind. You were being trained. The Psalms say, I lie awake. I have become like a bird alone on a roof. The Hebrew word for lie awake is shakad, and it does not just mean you cannot sleep. It means to watch without sleeping, to be on high alert like a soldier standing guard. The writer is not complaining about being tired. He is describing a spiritual job. Your 3:00 a.m. wake-ups, your inability to rest when everyone else is sleeping, that is not a sleep problem, that is shakad. You are on watch duty. You are guarding something in the spiritual world that others cannot see, but no one told you that, so you thought you were broken. And here is where it gets specific. There are 7 signs of spiritual gaslighting, and I want you to count how many you have felt in the last 6 months. The first sign is you get clear direction, but when you try to follow it, everything falls apart. So you start to think you heard wrong. The second sign is you see patterns everywhere, numbers, names, phrases that repeat so often it feels like someone is watching, but when you mention it, people say you are looking for meaning where there is none. The third sign is you feel a deep knowing about your purpose, but you have zero proof in the real world to back it up. No open doors, no confirmation, just a stubborn feeling that will not go away. The fourth sign is you have dreams that are too clear and real to be normal dreams. Dreams where you get instructions, warnings, or information you could not have known, but you are afraid to act on them because what if you are wrong? The fifth sign is you feel different from everyone around you in your spirit. Not better, not worse, just different. Like you are listening to a radio station no one else can hear. The sixth sign is people randomly tell you their secrets. Strangers share their deep thoughts. People you barely know cry in front of you for no reason. You have become a walking place for confessions and you do not know why. And the seventh sign, the loneliest one, is you feel like you are living in 2 worlds at once, the one everyone else sees and the one only you can see. And you are tired from acting like they are the same thing. If you have 3 signs, you are in the early stage. If you have 5, you are in a serious place. If you have all 7, then you are exactly where you need to be for this message. Because all 7 means the curtain between you and your calling is very thin. And tonight we are going to pull it aside. In the scriptures, God says, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart." But look at what happens next. The person responds, "Oh no, Lord, I do not know how to speak. I am too young." Do you see it? God just told him, you are set apart, you are chosen. And his first response is, "I am not ready." That is the response of someone feeling spiritual gaslight. God is saying one thing, but the person's life is screaming another, and the confusion is crushing. But God does not argue with him. God does not say, "No, you are ready." God says, "You do not say I am too young. You will go to everyone I send you to, and you will say whatever I command you." In other words, feeling ready is a lie. You are not supposed to feel ready. You are supposed to feel chosen, and chosen means you will be given what you need at the moment you need it, not before. So if you have been waiting to feel ready, stop. You will never feel ready. The mission is bigger than you are on purpose, because if you could do it all by yourself, you would not need God. But here is what I have not told you yet. Here is the part that is going to change everything. The file with your name on it, the one that was sealed. It is not a plan for your destiny. It is not a list of what you are supposed to do. That is what I thought it was for years. That is what most teachers will tell you, but that is not what it is. The file is a witness report, a record of what you already did in the spiritual world before you were born. You are not reading your future. You are remembering your past. You already agreed to this mission. You already volunteered for this job. You already said yes before you came here. And the seal breaking tonight, that is not God finally deciding to let you in on the plan. That is you finally being ready to remember what you already knew. And when that memory comes back, it is not going to feel like new information. It is going to feel like coming home. But the question is, why was the file sealed in the first place? Why the delay? Why the waiting? Why the silence? What you think is the reason? It is not. And that is what the second part of the message is about. The reason the file was sealed is because you were not ready for the weight of the truth. Your body and mind needed time to grow strong enough. If you had remembered who you were too early, if you had seen your full calling as a child, your body would have collapsed under the size of it. Your relationships would have broken. Your mind would have cracked, trying to hold both worlds at once. So God, in His kindness, locked the information away. He put a timer on it. He set it to open at the exact moment when your spirit would be tuned to the message. And that moment is now. At least, that is what most teachers will tell you. That is the simple answer, the one that makes God look protective and wise. And it is true. But it is not the whole truth. Here is what they do not tell you. The silence was not just from God. It was ordered by you. Before you came into this body, you stood in the planning room of heaven, and you looked at the assignment. You saw the mission. You understood the cost, and you made a request. You said, do not let me remember too early, because if I know who I am before I have been tested, I will try to force the mission before I have gathered my team. I will move in my own timing instead of God's timing, and I will burn out before I ever begin. So you asked for the delay. You designed the silence. You set the timer yourself. The waiting was not abandoned. It was your own plan from before your birth. And here is why this changes everything. Because if you ordered the silence, then the silence was not a sign that you were forgotten. It was a sign that you were being protected by your own future self. The version of you that already knows how this ends made sure the version of you walking through it now would not fall apart before reaching the finish line. That is the lockbox. Not a punishment, not a mystery, but a safeguard. But now the timer has run out. The lockbox is opening. And what is inside is not a prophecy about your future. It is a memory of your past, a reminder of what you already agreed to before you were born. The ancient writings say, He has made everything beautiful in its time. He has also set eternity in the human heart. That phrase, eternity in the heart, appears in many sacred texts. Every time it is describing the same thing, a memory from before birth, the soul remembering what it knew before the body was born. You have eternity in your heart, which means you have memories that are older than your own birth. And tonight, those memories are beginning to rise to the surface. But here is the important question. If the lockbox is finally opening, how do you actually reach inside and take out what is there? How do you receive the information without accidentally changing it? How can you tell the difference between a true message from above and just your own hopeful imagination? That is exactly what the Midnight Protocol is for. The Midnight Protocol is a system with 3 gates or doors you must pass through. Most chosen ones only ever find the first gate. A smaller number find the second, but the third gate is the rarest of all. That is why I absolutely had to send this message to you tonight specifically, because the third gate only opens during certain limited windows of time, and tonight you are standing inside one of those open windows. Let me explain it to you. Gate 1 is the gate of recognition. This is where you learn how to spot the signs, not just any general signs, but the specific ones that are custom-made for your personal spiritual frequency. Because not every chosen one sees repeating numbers like 1, 11. Not every chosen one receives messages through dream symbols. Your own soul has its own private language. And Gate 1 is where you begin to learn how to translate that language. Here is how you pass through Gate 1. In the next 2 days, you are going to notice 3 separate things that feel too precise, too perfectly timed, to be mere coincidence. It might be a phrase that a stranger says out loud that matches a sentence you quietly thought to yourself just this morning. It might be a specific number that shows up 3 different times in 3 completely unrelated places. It might be a sudden, vivid memory from your childhood that you have not thought about in many years. When that happens, do not brush it aside. Do not try to explain it away with logic. Instead, speak it out loud. Say, I see you. I recognize this as a sign meant for me. That simple act of speaking it and acknowledging it is the key. It turns the lock on the first gate. Gate 2 is the gate of validation. This is where you test the sign to make completely sure it is real and not just a product of your own imagination. Because here is a truth most spiritual teachers are afraid to tell you. Not every sign you perceive is from God. Some signs come from your own deep desperation. Some are sent from negative forces trying to distract and mislead you, and you absolutely must know how to tell the difference. Here is how you validate a sign. A true divine sign will always do 3 specific things. First, it will bring a deep sense of peace, not panic. Even if the message itself feels intense or challenging, the way it is delivered will feel steady and calm. Second, it will always align with the timeless wisdom and principles found in sacred scripture. And he slowly started to believe the painful lie that maybe God did not want him in that field at all. Maybe he had completely misheard his calling from the very beginning. Then he found this teaching, and on a quiet Tuesday night, he followed the protocol. He went through gate 1 and finally recognized the signs he had been dismissing for months. A specific phrase his late grandfather used to say kept showing up, word for word, in random conversations with total strangers. He acknowledged it out loud. He then moved to gate 2 and validated it. The phrase brought him a deep, surprising peace. It aligned perfectly with scriptural principles about legacy and purpose, and it required him to step into a level of leadership he had been secretly avoiding. All 3 boxes were checked. Then, at 11:47 p.m., he stood at that mental door of light, knocked 3 times and waited. What came through was not just a vague feeling. It was a voice, not an audible sound in the room, but clear inside his spirit. It said his childhood nickname, the one only his deceased grandmother had ever used. And then it gave him a direct instruction. Apply for the position you think you are not qualified for. The one you looked at last week and closed the browser tab because it felt too big for you. He thought he was losing his mind. But he had made a solemn commitment to himself to obey any downloads he received. So the very next morning he applied. And here is what happened. He got a call back within 3 hours. Not 3 days, 3 hours. The hiring manager said, "We weren't even planning to interview anyone else for this role, but something told me to open your resume first." Within 6 weeks, he was hired for the position, and within 6 months, his income had tripled. But that is not even the real miracle. The real miracle is what he told me later. He said, "The voice that gave me the instruction, it didn't sound like God. It sounded like me, like the older, wiser version of me who already knew this would all work out." That is what happens when you successfully access Gate 3. You do not just receive information from God, you receive it from your own future self, that part of you that exists outside of time, the part that has already walked the entire path and is now reaching back to guide the part of you that is still walking it. There is a story in the Bible about a young man named Samuel hearing God's voice for the first time. But notice, he heard the voice call his name 3 separate times before he finally recognized it was God. The first 2 times he thought it was his mentor, Eli, calling him, because divine transmissions often sound exactly like your own thoughts. They do not usually come with a thundering boom and a choir of angels. They come as a quiet inner knowing, a sudden flash of clarity, a whisper that feels both strangely foreign and deeply familiar all at the same time. The engineer's experience mirrors Samuel's pattern exactly. He heard something that sounded just like him, but it wasn't him. And when he chose to obey it, his entire reality rearranged itself to match the instruction. That is exactly what is available to you tonight. Not someday in the distant future, not when you feel more spiritual or more worthy, but tonight. But here is what I have not told you yet. The Midnight Protocol works. I have personally seen it work for hundreds of people, but I have also seen what happens to the people who learn it and then never apply it. The ones who listen and nod along, feel a moment of inspiration, and then go right back to passively waiting for a sign that feels more obvious, more spectacular. And what happens to them is actually worse than never knowing about the protocol at all, because now they know there is a door. Now they know there is a way through, but they are consciously choosing not to walk through it. And that creates a unique and terrible kind of suffering. It is the suffering of chosen ones who are just awake enough to clearly see the path, but still too afraid to take the very first step. So I need to ask you directly, are you going to be like the engineer, or are you going to be like the ones who learn and never apply? Because what comes next in your journey is going to require you to do much more than just listen. It is going to require you to move. Because here is what most people do not want to hear. The real reason you have not moved forward yet is not because you are not ready. It is not because God has not released you. It is because you are secretly deeply terrified of what will happen if you actually succeed. Let me say that again so it is absolutely clear. You are not primarily afraid of fate. You are afraid of winning, and that fear is so uncomfortable, so shameful to admit, that you have buried it under a mountain of other, more acceptable excuses. You tell yourself you are waiting for more clarity. You tell yourself you are just being patient. You tell yourself you are wisely trusting God's perfect timing. And while some of that might be true, underneath it all is a single, terrifying question you do not want to ask out loud. What if I actually get everything I prayed for, and then I prove that I never deserved it in the first place? What if I finally step into my full power, and everyone I love leaves me because they only really loved the struggling, less powerful version of me? What if success makes me a target for criticism and attack? What if becoming visible makes me profoundly vulnerable? What if the blessing itself turns out to be heavier and harder to carry than the curse ever was? Those thoughts, the ones you have been desperately shoving down, the ones you have been too ashamed to admit even in prayer, those are not signs of a weak faith. Those are the signs of someone whose spirit already knows the true magnitude of what is coming, and your human body and mind are instinctively trying to protect you from it. But here is the part that is going to flip your entire understanding upside down. That fear you feel, it is not your enemy. Most teachers will tell you that you must overcome fear, defeat it, pray it away, or starve it out. And you have tried all of that. You have done the daily affirmations. You have quoted the powerful scriptures. You have declared out loud that you are more than a conqueror. But the fear keeps creeping back. You know why? Because you are not supposed to overcome it. You are supposed to bring it with you. That specific fear you feel when you think about stepping into your full God-given authority. That is not a warning sign to stop. That is a confirmation sign, because fear of this kind only activates around real power. If this mission was fake, if this calling was just a delusion, you would not be scared. You would be indifferent. The very fact that you are terrified means you are frighteningly close to the truth. The fact that your hands shake when you contemplate the next step means the next step is powerfully real. The fear is not trying to stop you. The fear is acting as your personal bodyguard. It only shows up in full force when you're about to touch something that genuinely, eternally matters. There is a story about a man named Moses standing in front of a burning bush, and God says to him, "I am sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people out of Egypt." And Moses immediately responds, "Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh? Who am I that I should bring the Israelites out of Egypt?" That right there is the pure fear response. Not "I cannot do this," but "who am I to do this?" And here is what is critically important. God does not respond by saying, "You are amazing, Moses. You are so qualified. You are enough all by yourself." Instead, God says, "I will be with you." In other words, your personal sense of inadequacy is not a disqualification. Your inadequacy is the entire point of the mission. Because if you could do this all in your own strength, it would not require God's presence. And if it does not require God's presence, then it is not your real, divine assignment. This exact same pattern shows up with Gideon, with Jeremiah, with Esther. Every single one of them responded to their calling with a version of "I am not enough." And every single time, God replied with a version of "I know you're not. That is precisely why I'm sending you. So you must stop waiting for the fear to go away. It will not. Stop waiting to finally feel ready. You will never feel ready. You must start moving with the fear clinging to you. Start obeying while you are still trembling, because true courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is fear that has said a yes anyway. But I need to tell you one more thing, something I have been holding back until this very moment, because if I had said it at the very beginning, you likely would not have believed me. But you have come this far. You have stayed through all the discomfort, so now you are ready to hear it. There is a profound, specific reason this broadcast found you tonight. There is a reason the seal broke today and not last month or next year. There is a reason you are hearing this message at this exact, precise moment in your life. It is because tonight is your spiritual anniversary. Not your birthday, not the anniversary of some major visible life event. It is the anniversary of your first real, honest prayer. The one you spoke before you learned any religious language or rituals. The one you whispered in a moment when you were still completely honest with God. The prayer that went something like this. "Oh God, if you are real, please use me. I don't care what it costs. I don't care what I have to go through. Just please let my life mean something." You may not remember praying it. Or maybe you do remember, but you thought it did not count because you were too young, or too broken, or felt too far from God at the time. But heaven heard it. Heaven carefully documented it, and heaven marked the date on an eternal calendar. And today, whether you consciously realize it or not, you are standing inside the 48-hour window of that prayer's anniversary. It may not be the exact calendar date, but it is close enough that the veil between that moment then and this moment now is paper thin. God does not always answer prayers immediately. He answers them with divine precision, at the exact moment when the answer will have its maximum possible impact on your destiny and on the world. And tonight is that appointed moment for you. The ancient writings say, "For the revelation awaits an appointed time." It speaks of the end and will not prove false. Though it linger, wait for it. It will certainly come and will not delay. The Hebrew word translated as appointed time is mod, and mod does not mean now and ever. It means a specific fixed time marked on heaven's own calendar, a festival, a sacred meeting, a divine appointment that cannot be missed. Your breakthrough is not running late. It is happening exactly on a schedule that was set long ago, and tonight that scheduled appointment has finally arrived. But here is what you absolutely must understand. The very moment your breakthrough shows up, the enemy's attack against you will get much stronger, because the enemy already knows something you do not yet know. He knows exactly what is about to happen in your life over the next 40 days. He knows which doors are about to swing wide open for you. He knows which relationships are about to change forever. He knows who you are truly about to become, and he is going to try everything he can to stop it. Not with obvious, dramatic attacks. Not with lightning bolts and scary demonic possessions. He will use subtle, clever ones, strategic ones, the kind you will not even recognize as an attack unless someone sits you down and tells you exactly what to look for. So that is what I am going to do. I am telling you now that in the next 40 days, starting from tonight, you are going to face 7 specific forms of spiritual attack, and they are going to come in a specific order, not randomly. They will come in a sequence because the enemy follows a dark playbook, and once you know what is in that playbook, you can counter every single move before it ever lands a blow. The first form of attack is called the displacement attack. This is when you feel a sudden, unexplainable, powerful urge to just leave your job, to leave your city, to leave a good relationship, to end things that are actually working well in your life. And the urge feels so strong, so incredibly urgent, that you start to think it must be God telling you to move. But here is how you can recognize that it is not from God. The feeling has no sense of peace attached to it. It is pure pressure. It is pure panic. You feel like if you do not move right this second, something terrible is going to happen. That feeling is not divine guidance. That is enemy interference. The enemy knows what blessings are waiting for you in the very place you are thinking of leaving. He knows the person you are supposed to meet there. He knows the important conversation that is about to happen, and he is trying to physically move you away 48 hours before that blessing arrives. Here is your counter strategy. Do not make any sudden moves for the next 72 hours. Just wait. If the urgent feeling is still there after 3 full days, and now it comes with a deep, steady peace, then it might be a legitimate nudge from God. But if the feeling fades away, if you look back after a few days and think, "What in the world was I thinking?" then that was a displacement attack. You stood your ground and it passed. The second form of attack is the identity scramble. This is when you suddenly cannot remember who you are, not your name, but your spiritual identity. You wake up one morning and your mind is flooded with thoughts like, wait, am I actually chosen? Did I just make all of this up? Maybe I am just delusional. Maybe I am not special at all. Maybe this whole calling is just in my head. These thoughts come in heavy waves out of nowhere, especially after you have already received clear confirmation from God. That is not normal doubt. That is a scramble. The enemy is deliberately jamming your spiritual signal because he knows that if he can confuse you about your identity, you will never be able to complete the assignments that are based on that very identity. Here is how you counter it. In your mind, or even out loud, say your full name 3 times. Then declare, I am sent by the Most High God. I am assigned to this specific mission. I did not choose this path. I was chosen for it. And being chosen means I am equipped for it. Speak these truths until the mental fog clears. It will clear. The third form is the substitute blessing. This is the sneakiest attack of all. This is when a good opportunity appears, not a bad one, a genuinely good one. It makes perfect logical sense. It would solve some of your current problems. It would ease some of your stress, and everyone around you thinks you should absolutely take it. But when you sit quietly with it in your spirit, it just feels like settling. It feels like a close enough. It feels like the enemy is saying, I cannot stop you from being blessed, so instead I will give you a blessing that is just good enough to make you stop pursuing the truly great one God has for you. Here is how you test it. Ask yourself, does this opportunity require me to abandon my specific God-given assignment? Does it ask me to delay what I know in my heart I am supposed to do? If the answer is yes, then it is a substitution. If the answer is no, and it actually helps accelerate your true assignment, then it is the real thing. A true transmitter does not broadcast their message mainly through words. A transmitter broadcasts through their very presence. The majority of you listening will not say a single public word about this. Most of you will not post anything about it online. Most of you will not build a large platform or become famous speakers. But everywhere you choose to go, the spiritual frequency in that place will begin to shift because of you. People will stand or sit near you and suddenly receive a clarity they have been desperately searching for years. They will have personal breakthroughs simply by being in your presence, breakthroughs they could not have achieved on their own. They will receive divine downloads and insights just from being in the same room as you. Not because you preached a sermon to them, not because you gave them wise advice, but because you are broadcasting a holy frequency without even trying. You have become a walking portal between heaven and earth, and your primary job now is not to explain how the portal works. Your job is simply to be the portal. Let me tell you a true story about someone I call the teacher. She did not believe the part about becoming a transmitter. She thought it was just a nice metaphor. She assumed that a transmitting meant she needed to inspire people by telling her personal testimony, and she kept waiting to feel emotionally ready to share her story. But that feeling of readiness never came, so she stayed completely silent, feeling like a failure. Then, one ordinary morning, she walked into her 3rd grade classroom. It was a room of 23 young children who would not stop fighting. It was pure chaos every single day. Feeling completely overwhelmed, she stood at the front of the room and thought a silent prayer in her heart. God, if you are real, use me. I don't know what to do anymore. She did not say it out loud. She just stood there, thinking it, and then she stood in complete silence for about 10 seconds. And suddenly the entire room went quiet. Not the quiet of a teacher forcing discipline, but a deep, palpable peace quiet. A kind of stillness she had never ever felt in that classroom before. And then one of the students, a little boy who never cried, started to cry. And he said out loud, I forgive my dad. The teacher had not mentioned the topic of forgiveness. She had not talked about fathers. She had not said a single word. But the frequency in the room had shifted, and the boy felt safe enough to finally release a pain he had been carrying inside for years. Over the next 2 weeks, 5 different students had similar breakthrough moments in her presence. They initiated hard conversations with parents they had been avoiding. They confessed secret struggles they had been hiding. They asked sincere questions about God they had been too scared to ask before. And she told me later, I did not preach, I did not evangelize, I just carried the frequency, and the frequency did all the work. 6 weeks later, her school principal pulled her aside and asked, "What special training did you take? Because the change in your classroom is measurable. The test scores went up. The behavior incidents went down. What did you do differently?" And she could not explain it because she had not done anything differently. She had simply become something different. There is a story in the book of Acts that says, people brought the sick into the streets and laid them on beds and mats so that at least Peter's shadow might fall on some of them as he passed by. Please notice, it was Peter's shadow, not his words, not his sermons, his proximity. His very presence had healing power. It is a temporary divine acceleration designed only to position you exactly where you need to be. Your job is to say yes to the opportunities that both scare you and excite you at the same time. Say a firm no to anything that only feels like an obligation or a burden. Days 36 through 40 are the commissioning week. In this final stretch, you will receive one clear direct instruction from God, a specific actionable step to take that will officially launch the next major phase of your life. This instruction might not make immediate logical sense to your mind. You must do it anyway. Obey it immediately, even if the action seems very small, or even if it seems strange or weird to others. That one obedient action is the activation key for everything glorious that comes after it. That is your roadmap. 6 weeks, 40 days. And at the end of this period, you will not be the same person you are right now. You will have a different name in the spirit realm, a different assignment on the earth, and a different level of authority over your entire bloodline. But here is what I have not told you yet. Here is the part that no one in ministry ever wants to talk about, the part that will either prepare you for what's next or completely destroy you if you're not ready. True success has a cost, and the cost is not what you think it is. The cost of success is not your money, it is not your time, it is not even the sacrifices you make. The real hidden cost of success is profound loneliness, and no one prepares you for it. Because here is what inevitably happens when you step into the full truth of who you are meant to be. You begin to outgrow the people who knew you and loved you when you were a smaller, limited version of yourself. Not because you are better than them, not because you think you are too good for them now, but because your inner spiritual frequency has changed. And in the spirit frequency ultimately determines proximity. Who can stay close to you? The conversations that used to fill you up will start to drain your energy. The places that used to comfort you will start to feel restrictive and small. The people you used to call family may start to feel like polite strangers. And the guilt of that feeling, the shame of feeling like you are abandoning the people you love, that guilt will crush you if you do not understand what is truly happening. You are not leaving people behind. You are walking into a hallway, and hallways by their very nature are temporary and empty. But a hallway is not the destination. It is merely the necessary passage between where you were and where you are going. And here is what most people tragically do. They stand in the hallway, look around, see that they are all alone, and they panic. They think, I made a huge mistake. I wasn't supposed to leave. God would never call me to something that makes me feel this lonely. So they turn around and run back to the room they just left. They run back to the people who made them feel safe and understood. They run back to the smaller, more comfortable version of themselves that everyone was comfortable with. And they spend the rest of their lives haunted by the question of what would have happened if they had just kept walking. But here is the liberating truth. The loneliness is not your destination. It is just the hallway. Your new community, your new divine relationships have not arrived yet because you are still carrying the old frequencies from your last season. The people who are supposed to walk with you in your next season cannot find you spiritually until you have fully released the attachments and identities of the last season. So if you are in that hallway right now, if you are feeling the sharp loneliness of spiritual elevation, do not go back. Do not interpret the emptiness as a sign you were wrong. Interpret it as a sign you are between. And a between is the most important place you will ever be, because it is in the hallway that you finally decide once and for all who you are truly going to become. There is a story where the Israelites are in the wilderness, being fed every day by a miracle from heaven called manna. And they start to complain. They say, "Hey, we remember the fish we ate in Egypt at no cost, also the cucumbers, melons, leeks, onions, and garlic. But now we have lost our appetite. We never see anything but this manna." Do you see what they are doing? They are romanticizing their slavery. They are in the wilderness, being sustained by a daily miracle, and they are saying, "At least back in Egypt we had variety. At least back then we knew what to expect." That is the nostalgia trap, and it will pull you back into spiritual bondage faster than any other attack, because the human brain naturally prefers familiar pain over unfamiliar pleasure, and the enemy knows that weakness perfectly. So he will make you miss your old problems. He will make you remember the past struggle with a strange fondness. He will whisper, "At least back then you had people around you. At least back then you felt normal." But you must remember, normal was never your assignment. Chosen was your assignment. So if you find yourself in the hallway, here is what you must do. You do not just sit down in the middle of it and wait passively for the loneliness to pass. You must actively anchor the transition into your physical body so that the hallway does not become a permanent home. That is what the following 5 integration actions are for. The first action is the morning frequency declaration. Every single morning, within the first 3 minutes of waking up, before you touch your phone, before you speak to anyone, you say this quietly in your mind. I am your full name. Today I carry heaven's frequency. My presence is a transmission. You do not need to say it out loud. Just think it. And as you think it, become aware of your breath. Notice the air moving in and out of your lungs. That is you anchoring the declaration into your physical body. Because words without breath are just noise, but words combined with conscious breath become living authority. The reason this works is that your personal frequency is most programmable in the theta brainwave state. Theta is the state you are in right after waking up, while you are still drowsy. So the very first thought you think after waking sets the spiritual frequency for your entire day. Most people wake up and immediately check their phones, and the first frequency they absorb is the chaos of the news, social media, messages, and other people's emergencies. Then they wonder why their whole day feels reactive and out of control. But if you declare your true identity first, if you remind your own nervous system of who you are before the world gets a chance to tell you who to be, your entire day will begin to line up in divine order. You will notice the difference within 3 days. Your decisions will feel clearer. Your interactions will feel more aligned. Your energy will last longer. The second action is the midday recalibration. At noon, or as close to noon as you can get, pause whatever you are doing for just 90 seconds. In your mind, gently place your attention on your solar plexus, that soft space just below your rib cage, and ask one simple question. Am I in alignment right now? Do not try to answer the question with your logical mind. Let your body answer. If you feel a sense of expansion, lightness, or ease, you are in alignment. If you feel contraction, heaviness, or inner resistance, you are out of alignment. And if you are out of alignment, do not panic or judge yourself. Just notice it calmly, and then make one small, practical adjustment to correct it. Cancel the meeting that feels forced. Send the text you have been avoiding. Say a no to the thing you only said yes to out of a sense of guilt or obligation. The reason the timing of noon matters is because noon is when the sun is at its highest point in the sky. The sun is not just a physical object, it is a powerful electromagnetic force. At its peak, your physical body is receiving the strongest possible signal from the natural world. So when you choose to recalibrate your spirit at noon, you are consciously syncing your internal frequency with the majestic ordered frequency of all creation. The third action is the evening documentation. Every single night, right before you fall asleep, you are going to mentally review your day. You will identify 3 specific things from the past 24 hours. First, one meaningful synchronicity, a coincidence that felt too perfect to be random. Second, one clear download or spiritual insight you received, whether it came as a thought, a feeling, or through a dream. Third, one person who randomly appeared in your day or reached out to you unexpectedly. You do not need to write these 3 things down on paper. Just replay each moment quietly in your mind. See the scene again. Feel the feeling you had at that time. Because this simple act of reviewing trains your conscious mind to start noticing the spiritual frequency work that is constantly happening all around you. Most people miss over 90% of the signs from heaven because they are simply not paying attention to them. But when you make a committed habit of this evening documentation, your spiritual awareness sharpens like a knife, and by the 10th day, you will begin to see clear patterns and connections that you were completely blind to before. The fourth action is the weekly pattern review. One time each week on the same chosen day every week, for example, every Sunday night, you will mentally review all 7 days of the past week. You are looking for the common thread. You are searching for the hidden connection between all the separate synchronicities and events, because what happens on individual days might seem random and disconnected, but the pattern over a full week will reveal the divine plan. In your mind, ask this question. What is the one theme that showed up multiple times this week? Maybe it was a specific phrase you kept hearing. Maybe it was a certain person's name that kept appearing. Maybe it was a particular feeling that returned again and again. And once you identify that weekly theme, you ask a second question. What is this theme trying to tell me or show me? The fifth and final action is the anchor object visualization. In your mind, you will choose one ordinary object that you see or physically touch every single day. It could be your car keys. It could be your phone case. It could be a ring or a watch you always wear. You will assign a new sacred meaning to this everyday object. Every time you see that object or touch it from now on, you will let it silently remind you of 3 truths. I am transmitting. I am aligned. I am on mission. You do not need to buy or carry a special physical object. The object is already a normal part of your daily life. You are simply reprogramming its meaning in your mind. And after faithfully doing this for 40 days, the simple act of touching that object will instantly shift your mental and spiritual state, because your own nervous system will have learned to associate it with the powerful frequency you have been consciously building. These 5 daily actions are not empty rituals or religious chores. They are practical tools for neural reprogramming. They are the precise method for how you anchor spiritual truth into your physical, earthly life. And if you do them faithfully for the entire 40-day period, you will eventually not need to think about them anymore. Because by then, living in this frequency will have become automatic and natural for you. In the Old Testament, God tells a leader named Joshua to take 12 stones from the middle of the Jordan River and pile them up as a memorial. The scripture says this was done so that in the future, when children asked, "What do these stones mean?" the people could tell them the story. This is where God stopped the waters. This is where we crossed over into our promise. The Hebrew word for a memorial means more than just to remember. It means to remember in order to put something back together, to reassemble what has been fragmented or broken apart. Physical objects, when given sacred meaning, have the power to reconnect you to spiritual moments when you feel like you are falling apart. That is exactly what your anchor object does. It remembers you and your calling when the noise of the world tries to fragment your identity and your peace. But now I need to tell you the one thing I have been holding back until this very end. The thing that will either set you completely free or leave you deeply confused, depending on whether your spirit is truly ready to hear it. God is not about to tell you tonight that you are special. He is about to tell you what you have been officially assigned to do. This is not about finding your life's purpose. You already know your purpose deep down. Even if you cannot put it into perfect words, you feel it, that constant inner pull, that quiet knowing, that one thing you cannot stop thinking about no matter how hard you try to distract yourself. Your purpose is not the mystery anymore. Your protocol is the mystery. Your protocol is the specific step-by-step sequence of moves that turns what you know in your spirit into what you actually do in the world. It is the critical difference between having a beautiful vision and successfully executing that vision. And the tragic truth is that most chosen ones die with their grand vision still trapped inside them, because they never received the operating protocol to make it real. But here is the part that changes absolutely everything for you. You are not in the process of becoming chosen. You are in the process of remembering that you already were chosen from before the beginning. All your past struggles were not punishments from an angry God. They were divinely allowed training simulations. Every betrayal you suffered was a painful but necessary lesson in spiritual discernment. Every loss you endured was a lesson in holy detachment from things that could not go with you. Every moment of agonizing silence from heaven was a lesson in learning to trust your own spirit. You did not just randomly stumble upon this broadcast tonight. This broadcast was scheduled on heaven's calendar for you. Your emotional breakdown last month, that was a divine demolition of old structures, not a random destruction. Your season of feeling isolated and alone this past year, that was a sacred incubation period, not a sign of God's rejection. Your recent season of confusion, that was the static of old signal interference finally clearing out, making way for a pure transmission. The reason you have always felt so different from everyone else around you is not a sign of delusion or mental illness. It is a sign of spiritual accuracy. You are different. Not better than others and not worse, simply different. You have been assigned to operate on a different spiritual frequency for a different mission on a different divine timeline. And tonight, the original assignment you agreed to long ago and then forgot is being handed back to you. This is not a brand new assignment. It is your original assignment, the one you agreed to carry before you were ever born into this body, the one you spent your childhood catching glimpses of in your dreams, only to forget the details when you woke, the one that made you feel crazy or alone because no one else around you could see or confirm what you saw so clearly. Tonight, the spiritual amnesia breaks. The scriptures say, He chose us in Him before the creation of the world. The original language says this happened before the foundation of the world was put together, before the stars, before time as we know it, before this earthly version of you even existed. Another verse says, all the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be. Your life was authored in heaven before it was ever lived out on earth. You are not writing your story from scratch. And tonight you are finally being allowed to see the script. But merely seeing the script is not enough. You have to get up and act on it, and that is where your formal commissioning comes in. You are being commissioned tonight, not given a friendly suggestion, not sent a gentle invitation. You are being given direct spiritual orders, and commissioning is not optional. It is a command. Your first assigned mission is to become the frequency guardian. Your primary job for the next 40 days is to hold a steady, holy frequency no matter what chaos or drama happens in the natural world around you. When other people are panicking, you will stay supernaturally grounded. When other people are drowning in doubt, you will remain quietly certain, not because you are a naturally stronger person, but because you have been specifically assigned and empowered to do so. In the next 40 days, someone will try to pull you into their personal chaos. You will feel the emotional hook trying to catch you. You will feel the pull on your energy. Do not bite. Do not engage. Your simple, steady presence will over time begin to recalibrate them toward peace. Your second assignment is to become the pattern breaker. Your secondary mission is to identify and break destructive generational cycles in your own family bloodline. Where your family has historically had a mindset of poverty and lack, you will operate in a mindset of divine abundance. Where they have told themselves a story of being victims, you will live out the truth of being a victor. You do this not to shame your family, but to spiritually free them. Pay close attention to what behavior or negative belief you automatically default to when you are under stress. And the next time you feel that stress, you will consciously and deliberately do the opposite. The old curse stops with you. The new blessing begins with you. Your third assignment is to become the bridge. Your third mission is to act as a translator between the spiritual realm and the physical earthly realm. You speak both languages fluently. Your job is to help people who live only in abstract spirituality and have no practical wisdom, and people who live only in hard practicality and have no spiritual insight to find the bridge between those two worlds. When someone shares a struggle with you, you will be equipped to give them both a spiritual insight and a practical, actionable step, both together, not one or the other. You become a walking, living integration point between heaven and earth. There is a story where the prophet Isaiah hears the voice of God asking, "Whom shall I send? And who will go for us?" And Isaiah responds, "Here am I. Send me." But please notice the timing. He volunteers. after he has had a terrifying, glorious encounter with the presence of God, not before. Divine commission always comes after a genuine encounter, not before it. You are being commissioned right now because you have just had the encounter. This entire broadcast was your encounter. You have seen the glory of the truth. You have received the spiritual intel. Now, your required response is not just saying words. Your response is a life of obedience. So now we seal this commissioning. But before we seal it, you need to prepare your heart and mind, because what comes next is not a regular casual prayer. This is a spiritual activation ceremony. I bind every lying voice that says, "You are not ready," because a ready is a lie. You are chosen, and chosen means you're already equipped. I seal the transmission activation. From now on, everywhere you go, people will feel something shift in the atmosphere without you having to say a single word. I seal the antenna extension. You are now a walking broadcast tower for heaven's frequency. I seal the ripple effect. Breakthrough will now cascade through your entire bloodline, both forward into your future and backward into your past, healing generations. I declare that within 7 days, you will receive the first undeniable confirmation checkpoint. Within 14 days, you will face the first form of attack, and you will recognize it immediately for what it is. Within 21 days, your life assignment will crystallize from a foggy idea into sharp, clear focus. Within 40 days, you will be standing in a completely different reality than the one you are standing in tonight. I declare that resources are now about to find you. You will not have to chase them down. I declare that doors that were welded shut are about to swing open on their own. I declare that relationships that were draining your life energy will peacefully release their grip on you. I declare that the waiting is finally over. The silence is broken. The transmission is now active. I declare that you will look back on this very night and mark it as the dividing line between before and after. This is your Genesis moment, your burning bush, your road to Damascus experience. Tonight, you remember who you truly are. Now I am going to ask you one final question, and all of heaven is leaning in, waiting for your answer. Are you ready to carry this? Are you ready to be different? To be misunderstood by people who used to know you? To lose some relationships because you have outgrown them? To outgrow the old, comfortable versions of yourself? Are you ready to be a transmitter of God's presence even on the days when you do not feel like it? Are you ready to stand firm when everyone else around you is falling? In your mind, right now, say yes. Say it like you truly mean it. Heaven heard that. The angels heard that. Hell heard that. And I heard that. You are now officially commissioned. The activation ceremony is complete. You are hereby dismissed from the waiting room of life. You are dismissed from the wilderness of confusion. You are dismissed from the long season of preparation. You are now actively in your assignment. Do not say "I'm in a" yet. Just sit in this powerful silence for 10 more seconds. Let the truth settle into your bones. Let it take root in your spirit. Let the seal become permanent. Now go. And do not come back to what used to be a normal for you. There is no normal anymore. You are marked by God. You are activated. You are deployed. The emergency broadcast is now complete.